Hi, it's Connie Erickson with another episode of Live at 5, and my glasses are a little crooked. Okay, they're better. Sorry, I'm a little late. I was on a call that went a little long. But today I want to talk about thinking nice things and choosing your data points wisely. And that sounds like a weird topic, so let me explain. There's a saying in research and in statistics, and the saying is, if you torture the data, it will confess to anything. It's from a 1954 book called How to Lie with Statistics by Darrell Huff. And it basically means that the statistics can be manipulated enough to support anything. And you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with relationships? So let me tell you, I was reminded of this saying last week when I was sitting with a client who was complaining about her husband. And they've been married about 30 years, and she was wondering aloud whether she was better off with him or without him. Hi, Corey. She felt like they were worlds apart. Their interests and their political views had changed a lot since they first met and fell in love, and his faults just seemed glaring. So one thing that's cool about my practice is that I do work with individuals, but I'm fortunate enough that I work with couples as well as individuals. And why I say that's fortunate is because when therapists just work with individuals, sometimes it's really easy to side with the person who's sitting in front of you, and you think, wow, their spouse is really an a-hole. How can they even stand them? But as a couples therapist, I know there are at least two sides to every story, and usually they're both right. And that's what made me think of that statistic saying. My client, she was only focused on certain unsavory data points. And clearly, if she focused on the irritating data points, his propensity to leave stuff laying around, his frequent need for approval, he seemed like less than a stellar partner. And that was what the data was telling her, and that's what she was believing. And I asked her, well, tell me some of the things you like about your husband. What drew you to him? What things are going well now? And she had to think for a minute, but then the thoughts started to flow. He's good at big decisions. He's patient with their children. He's even-tempered. And the list started to get longer. And those data points told a very different story. And I think sometimes the opposite happens when you first meet and fall in love with someone. Then you automatically choose data points that show your new love in a positive light, and you ignore the data that doesn't fit the conclusion that you're pining for. So maybe you're focused on how he brings flowers instead of his proclivity towards arriving late without calling. Because you want the data to show thoughtfulness, not thoughtlessness. You want the evidence to support your happily ever after. Comparing is another really good way to skew the data, or should I say bad way, but that's a particularly interesting way to torture the data. People who are about to have affairs do this. They choose data points for their partners that show how awful their partners are, and data points for the new person that makes the new person look practically flawless. So don't do this. Choose your data points wisely. If the relationship is new, try to be objective. Avoid the temptation to totally give in to those love chemicals that I talked about a few weeks ago. And if you're in a long-term relationship and you want to stick with your partner, keep looking at the data points, or keep looking for the data points that show them in a good light. Because why wouldn't you? Looking at the positive puts you in a better mood, and it helps you want to give your best, which is way better for your relationship. As for my client, we started to talk about ways to increase closeness and nurture the friendship, which I talk about in my course as well. Nurture the friendship foundation of the relationship. And she committed to trying her very best for 6 months and then reassessing. I would be willing to bet on a positive outcome for their relationship, and not just positive like they're going to stay together, but I mean positive in feeling closer and being happier with each other. So my take-home message is thinking nice thoughts about your partner matters. Inputting positivity completely changes the experiment. And at that point, you can stop torturing the data and let the data speak for itself. That's when you draw the best conclusion. So drop your comments. Let me know, how you like this or how you think it'll work in your relationship. And I will see you next week for another Live at 5. Thanks a lot.